The BMW E30, an icon of German engineering. Is it fast? Not really. Is it the ultimate driving machine? Well, that depends on what you're looking for. What is it? The E33 series is a very pleasant car. It blends the finest styling cues from classic cars with just the right amount of 80s boxiness. It's not as jolly as a Miata, but it is just as happy to see you. It just tells you that in a more German way. That doesn't mean it's as macho as an IROC Z either. The BMW ist Deutsch. Das ist alles. Now, before I say something I don't mean to say by trying to speak German, I'll move on to a few specifics. I'll start with the engine. The single overhead cam M20 engine in the 1989 325i made 168 horsepower at 5800 RPM and 163 pound-feet of torque at 4300 RPM. The new Base 3 Series makes almost double the horsepower and well more than twice the torque, but it also weighs almost half a ton more. I'm not exactly sure what the convertible model weighs, but that doesn't really matter. The most any E30 weighed was just over 3,000 pounds. It can also be bought relatively cheap, I'm not talking about the M3, when compared to many other enthusiast options.
My name's Austin Ferris. I got a 1989 BMW 325i, also known as an E30. It's the chassis style. And you got to throw the fancy thing in there, cabriolet. It's my dream car. Me and my dad have been looking at E30s through Alabama, which there's not many. Toying with the idea of getting one, and I could never afford it. There's no way I was going to be able to buy my own E30. And we were looking around, and my dad found one, and it was this one. He showed me pictures of it and things for a few days, and he said, I'm going to go take a look at it. Well, he heads over there and he gives me a phone call, well, a video call over Facebook, and says, hey, answer up, answer the phone. I answer up and I found out it's Ash Davidson. He, one of the owners of Alabama Speed Club in Birmingham. A good friend of mine and a good friend of my dad's. And he shows me the car on the video and shows it, revs of the motor, tells me about, what it needs, what's going on with it. And he's like, my dad goes, I want to talk to him, see what I can figure out. 2 or 3 days go by, and my dad finally calls me back and says, well, it's sold. Somebody got it. Naturally, I got my hopes up, and I was devastated. I was down about it. It sucked. Week goes by, and Dad keeps asking me what I got going on this weekend. And we were having a benefit show at Dickey's for a local car enthusiast that has helped a lot of people. And I thought I was going to be there hanging out. At the time I was driving a 98 Blazer that was about 2 tires in the grave. And I'm hanging out there. I hear nothing else from my dad. Somebody says, hey Austin, there's a black E30 rolling by. Naturally, I jumped up to go try to see if I could see it. It drives by and I miss it. And I was like, oh, well, dang. Oh well. It drives back by again. I catch a glimpse of it. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, I go back to the meet and it pulls in. I look up and I start walking over to it, and I see my dad in the driver's seat. And I went, what the hell? I run over to the car and immediately started crying. I was like, there's no way you bought this. And he puts it in park, pulls the keys out, tosses it to me, it's yours. And I couldn't stop crying. It was my dream car. The inline 6, M20 motor, everything. Everybody around me was blown away. I've never had a cool car. I've driven everything from a beat up 04 325i Chevy Blazer, Chevy S10, and a Jeep, all stock, just boring stuff. And my dad shows up with this, and finally had me something cool, something I love, and hell, at 21, my dream car.
The steering is extremely light and pretty direct, with any issues likely attributable to the car being nearly 30 years old. Throttle input is heavy, which I enjoyed, as it was a nice change of pace. This car has a resonator delete that makes it pretty loud, but it's not a bad exhaust note. The M20 is also nice to look at. It's rare that an engine looks as good as the body lines on a car, but I think this one does. Maybe I'm just not used to European cars.
Growing up, I've always loved cars. I didn't know a whole lot. I always helped my grandfather work on his old GMC, sitting on top of the wheel well in the motor and helping him, hand him tools and hold the light. And he had an old 442 Oldsmobile that he got right before he passed away. Unfortunately, I didn't get to work on it long. But I've always loved cars. I was always addicted to Hot Wheels. Always loved collecting them. I used to have over 500 unopened Hot Wheels. And I've always loved them. But until recently, when I moved to Tuscaloosa and really got to get into the car scene on my own, and eventually, start my own group and grow with my own group in Tuscaloosa, it's really, made me appreciate cars and everybody that's in the scene, and learn a lot, because I can't afford to take my cars to a shop. Might as well learn how to do it myself. And I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, made a lot of new friends, all with the same passion, and I've had the chance to lead a group to almost 300 members. Well, when I first moved down here, I was down here for about a year before I really got into the car scene here, and I joined another group, which was Alabama Sports Cars. It was a lot of high power, high octane cars, and at the time I drove an ordinary 04 BMW 325i with a 5-speed, and it was driven the hell out of. It was a piece of junk, but it ran. And eventually it got totaled, and then I got into a Jeep. Well, when I got into the Jeep, there's a lot of members that, there's a lot of high octane guys, and I didn't really fit it. And it got to the point where, I was making small meets with my buddies that I had met in that group, or, met around town. And one night we were just hanging out, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we start our own group? And everybody was on board. We had about 9 or 10 of us at the time. Good buddy of mine, Caston, Adam, Don, Joe, all of them. They were all on board, and I eventually came up with the name Automotive Addiction. So I wanted to start something that didn't just have to be high octane. It didn't have to just be trucks. It didn't have to just be Mazdas or just BMWs or just Jeeps. It could be anybody and everyone. Anybody that has a passion for cars, to strive to learn how to work on their own cars, or build something on their own, or even if it's just stickers and a little bit of paint. It don't have to be motor work. We wanted everybody. We wanted to help grow the car scene in Tuscaloosa with a younger crowd, because there's a lot of older groups, and I wanted to be the next generation for Tuscaloosa. Eventually, we're hopefully going to become a nonprofit, be able to help support Toys for Tots and other children's programs and things like that with benefit shows, and slowly work towards being able to help people.
All in all, the E30 is a great entry-level option into the car hobby. I'd even go as far as saying it's a great option for a rich person to get a fun car that's a little different from their buddies' cars at the country club. It may remind them of their younger years, which will lead to conversations about cars with strangers. Similar to this anecdote I'll end on. While Austin was getting gas en route to my usual filming location, an older gentleman walked up to him and started talking about the car. Isn't that the goal of any car enthusiast, to have total strangers interested in your car? Not to be pestered if you own some movie car like a DeLorean, but for people to be genuinely interested. It turned out that this guy used to have a BMW just like this one. Heck, maybe it was this one. It's had 9 owners. He credited his E30 with saving his life because it was just fast enough to get around one semi-truck in time to avoid a head-on collision with another in what was likely an ill-advised passing attempt.